Hi, and welcome to MLA style formatting in Microsoft Word. Let's get started. I am going to double click on the Word icon from my desktop computer. Then I'm going to select a blank document to begin a new document, write fresh. Within the home menu in Word, I'm going to go to the font area and click on the font menu. Under font, I am going to select Times New Roman, and I can either scroll down or right in this box, I can start typing Times New Roman until it comes up. Then I'm going to click on it to select it. Make sure that the font style is set to regular and the font size to 12. Make sure that the font color stays at automatic, no underline, no effects. Then click on Set as Default. Then click on OK. From here on, you don't have to worry about the font. Everything will be the same no matter what you do on the computer, unless you copy and paste from another document that has different formatting. And for that, we'll go over that in the future. The next thing is to set the line spacing. Still within the Home tab, I'm going to bring down the paragraph menu. From here, I'm going to go to the spacing section, and I'm going to make sure that the before and after spacing is set to 0 points for each. So this one is already set at 0 for before. For after, I'm going to go ahead and change that. Then I'm going to click on the box that says do not add space between paragraphs of the same style. The next thing is to go under the line spacing, bring down the menu and select double. Then I'm going to click on set as default, click on OK, and that's it. Now all of my line spacing is set up for the entire document, unless of course I copy and paste from another source that has a different formatting. The next thing that I'm going to do is to make sure that my margins are set up properly. So I'm going to change tabs in Microsoft Word, and from Home, I'm going to click on Layout. From there, in the page setup, I'm going to click on Margins, and I'm going to make sure that it's set to normal. And normal should be 1 inch top, bottom, left, and right. So then that means that my margins are set from the top and the bottom and the left and the right to 1 inch. And that is the case right now. Now let's set our last name and page number on the very top right corner. Microsoft Word calls for us to set a header on each page. And that header needs to contain, of course, our last name and the page number of each document, starting with page number 1. For that, I am going to go to the Insert tab in Microsoft Word. Then the easiest way to do so is to click on page number, which can be found in the header and footer area. So I'm going to click on that button. From there, I'm going to select the top of page option. And when the submenu appears, I'm going to go to plain number 3. As I could tell, this one has everything aligned to the right, which is what we need. So now I am still within the header, and the page numbering is already configured, so I never have to worry about the page numbers. All I have to do is then type in my last name. So I'm going to pretend that my last name is Smith. And after my name, I'm going to put a space, and that's it. Then I need to get out of the header, and to do so, I could either press the Escape key, or I can click on the button with the X that says Close Header and Footer. And that's it. My header is already set up. The next step is to set up my heading. Not the header, but the heading. The heading is where I'm going to put in my name, the professor's name, the class, and the date. And for that, right from here, I'm just going to pretend my name is Jane Smith. Then I'm going to press the Enter key. Then I'm going to add my professor's name. Press Enter. Then I'm going to put in my class. And course number. And sometimes you may need to put in also your section. Then I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to put in the date the way that the Europeans do it, which is day, month, and year. This could be either today's date, or it could be when the assignment is due, or you can ask your professor if they have a preference. So let's just pretend that today is the 12th of August, 2020. Then I'm going to press enter one more time. Notice that everything is now double spaced. The font is the same. After I've entered my heading, the next line is to include the title of my essay or my research project. If this was a 10-page research paper, then I would give it a meaningful title, something that is short. In this case, for this class, since you're not doing a research paper, instead you're doing an annotated bibliography, that is what I'm going to put in as the title. So all of the titles will always need to be centered. So right from here, I'm going to select the center feature or the center function. That center function is located in the Home tab. Then I'm going to go all the way here to where the paragraph section is, and notice here's where I can find the alignment. Right now, this is set to alignment to the left, but I'm going to click here on center. And see now, anything I type is going to be centered. So I'm going to type in annotated bibliography. Then I'm going to press enter. Now, I don't want anything else to be centered, so I am going to go back to the paragraph section, and I'm going to select the left align. So here we go. Now I am ready to start typing all of my annotated bibliography items on all of my citations and everything else. Now, if this, instead of being the annotated bibliography and this was an essay, then you do something slightly different. For my project, you don't have to worry about paragraph indentations because you're not writing an essay. You're not having to indent any paragraphs. But let's just pretend I'm going to erase this, and let's just pretend that this is an English class instead. And I'm going to say violent video games and kids. That's my title. Then I'm going to go back into the left align, and then I can start typing my wonderful essay. But before I do, each paragraph would need to be indented. The way to do so is you would press the tab key on your keyboard. So I press the tab key, and then I can start typing my essay. I say violent video games are very bad for kids. I would put some thought and write down my entire all of my essay. And as I type, see, let's just pretend that this is wonderful work. Notice that I don't have to worry about pressing the enter key or anything else because my paragraph is already being indented. So let's just say I reached the end of my paragraph and I'm still typing. I press enter, and then I'm ready to start my next paragraph. So what I could do is either configure all of my paragraphs within Word. There's a way to do that. Or you can just press the tab key again and then just start typing your next paragraphs. So this is just a quick demonstration on how Microsoft Word works. This particular feature that you don't have to worry about reaching the margin on the right side is called word wrap, and that is set by default, so that way you don't have to worry about that. And most word processors nowadays have that same feature. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to set it again the way it's supposed to be for my class. Annotated. Press enter, and let me go ahead and correct that spelling. Press enter, and then left align. Now I'm ready to start pasting my citations. Okay, so now I am ready to go ahead and copy and paste the citation. So I am inside Academic Search Complete, and I did some searching, and I found this great article that I'm going to use for my citations. So from here, I am going to go to the right side and click on the Citation Tools button, which is in the shape of a yellow piece of paper. From here, I am going to scroll down until I get to MLA, and here it is, the citation. And I am going to use my mouse and highlight the entire citation. Then I'm going to right click and click on copy with my left button. Now I am ready to go into my Word document for my annotated bibliography. So now I am ready to paste it. So what I'm going to do is right click, and when the options come up, instead of using this one, the keep source formatting, notice that it has some weird stuff. Here, let me just click on it so you'll see. Notice that it has this gray background and some other stuff. So what I'm going to do is instead, I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to right click again, and instead of clicking the first option, I am going to select the middle option, which is merge formatting. Merge formatting, that means that I am telling Word to merge the format from my citation to whatever I have in my document set as a default. So go ahead and click on that, and there it goes. So now it looks much better. Now there's still some things here that I need to fix. Like I've said in other videos before, some databases do a better job than others, and even within the same database, sometimes it makes some mistakes that need to be corrected. In this case, I'm going to start off by looking at their capitalization. Notice here that the author's last names are and first names are all in caps. So what I am going to do is change that. So I could either just retype it with the correct capitalization, or I am just going to highlight that, and while still in the home ribbon, in the home tab, I'm going to click right here under the font section, this little icon that is in the shape of a capital A and a lowercase a, and I'm going to select lowercase. I'll do the same thing for all of them. Lowercase, lowercase. There is a way that I could have just highlighted just specific things that I wanted, and I would have been able to just make everything lowercase. So now let's take a look again. So let's see. Kung Cheng and Cheng. So let me go back into my document, and I'm going to make sure that they got the author's names correctly. So it looks like Jen is the last name, so that is what needs to be listed first. Let me go back to my document and see they messed that up. So I need to move that over here. I'm going to put in a comma, space. All right. So then that's much better. Now let me go back and again look at the document again. Chia Chang. So it looks like they messed that up too. Let me set it up side by side so that way I don't have to keep going back and forth from document to document or from window to window. Maybe it's a little smaller. See, sometimes they really mess it up, especially with international articles. Okay, now that's right. Yes, so then this particular article has two authors. So when we're doing the citations, the very first author that is mentioned, that is the one that gets inverted, in which you list the last name first and then the first name, and then you're going to type in and then you're going to list the second author, and again also the first name and then the last name. So just to reiterate, the very first author listed from the source, which in this case is this author, the last name, their last name is going to be listed first, comma, and then their first name. And for the second author, it would be first name and last name instead. Okay, now that I've taken care of the author's section, now let's take a look at the title of the article. priming effect of computer, everything else, that seems to be okay. Then the title of the journal is in italics, volume, issue number, the publication, the page range, the name of the database is supposed to be here, but EBSCOhost, instead of using their individual database names, they just use their company name, which is EBSCOhost, and that is also acceptable. Then they have a comma, and then they have the DOI and the period. So I can go back into the document and make sure that everything is correct as it should be. So social and behavior personality, 2016, 40, here's the page range, and then there's a DOI. So that all seems to be correct. So it looks like they only messed up on the author's names. This is almost correct. There's other things that I need to do to it, which is to finish formatting it. Now I'm going to highlight the entire entry, and I'm going to select the hanging indent option. So now that I still have it highlighted, still in the Home tab, I'm going to go back to the paragraph section, bring down the menu, and this time I'm going to go under indentation, and I'm going to go to this special section, bring down that menu, and select hanging. Then I'm going to click on OK. And then now it has the type of indentation that I need for all of my citations. So right from here, I have my source, and I'm ready. Right after my citation, I can press the space bar, and then I can start typing my short paragraph where I'm summarizing the content of this article. Then I am providing an evaluation on this article. And then lastly, I'm going to address how this article helps us answer the research question, or why it is significant, or why it fits my specific research purpose. Okay, so now I am ready to type my short paragraph, my annotation for this particular source. Before I get started on that, I do want to mention that in other classes, the professors may ask you to add something here, maybe put in your thesis or your question, and then you would just type it in this section here. So just wanted you to be aware of that. For all of these assignments, just always be sure to follow the model that your professor has asked. For this class, I'm trying to keep it very simple and just format it in this way. And right after the citation, where my cursor is, you can just start typing your sentences. There is another version for annotated bibliographies where you wouldn't start typing here. For my class, you do. You can start typing, this article is, and continue on typing your sentences. For other classes, maybe the annotation would start right below it, but right here. So notice that the citation is right here by itself, and on a different line, you would also indent it, and then you just start typing your summary right there. For my class, just start typing it right after the citation, right up here. You would begin with a brief summary. For my class, it's just a 1 sentence, 2 at max for the summary section. Then you would do the evaluation sentence, and then you would add in your relevancy sentence. So let's look at the article again for my example. So I am back in my article, and here's where I'm going to review the article so that I can start my summary. The first thing is that I may not understand what priming means or what a priming effect is, and that would be important in order for me to better understand what this article is about. So I would just look it up in a encyclopedia or a dictionary of psychology. So basically, priming in this case is just the psychological effect of when we see something or hear something, what our subconscious, how it reacts, or what does it say or do. So what that means is the psychological effect of game violence and children and different aggression levels. So you would apply that to your own project whenever there's, something that you don't quite understand. It's very important that you also look up what it is in a specific dictionary. So if you're doing something related to health or nursing, be sure that you look up the definition, not just in the regular dictionary, but in the specialized subject encyclopedia, because it'll definitely make better sense once you understand what these different terminologies mean. Now, right from here, let's take a look at what this article has. This section is information about the article, where it came from. This was published in Social Behavioral and Personality. 2016 is not that old for a case study. The volume, the issue, the date, all of the citation information that we've already put into our citation. Then here's the title of the article, and here's the two people who wrote this article or who conducted the study or studies. The section below is the abstract. The abstract is a brief summary of what the article is about, what it contains. You could definitely use this to determine relevancy for your research project, and it can also help you come up with your summary and to an extent also the evaluation. But be sure that do not just only rely on the abstract to come up with your own annotations for each of your sources. Be sure that you review the source completely. Another section is take a look at these keywords, because right here it tells me what are the main keywords associated with this particular article and the concepts that it addresses, and it could also help me come up with different search strategies. I'm going to scroll down a bit. The next few things is, before we get into this section, right here is, in this footnote, it tells me information about the authors. So it tells me who this author is and where they're from, as far as academically or professionally, where they work. So that also tells me, how reliable they are. In case studies, it's going to be most likely researchers or professors or scholars or PhDs, either working at universities or research institutes or think tanks. Then this here tells me also where the research came from or how it was funded. So that's also very important to know, because a lot of these case studies could be funded by surprising sources, maybe a company, or most of them are going to be funded by some sort of national grant or governmental funding, etc. So all of this, okay, it's still good here. All of this, this particular article is based of two different case studies coming out of China. But in this case, what happens to children in one part of the world could also apply in other parts of the world. So that doesn't necessarily make it less relevant for my project. So now let's look at the rest of the parts of this article. Right here where it says literature review, if you're looking at a case study in the sciences, the health, biology, psychology, sociology, when it says literature review, this is not talking about Shakespeare or a poet or anything like that. What it means is these two researchers are doing their own research, looking at other published sources, whether it's books, articles from databases, etc. They're doing research on their own research question just to see what else is out there on their topic. And after they've conducted their research, they're summarizing what they found. So this is a great place to know where they're coming from, as far as where they're getting their information from, what sources they're using, what they looked at. So right, I could tell, okay, some are from 1994, 2002, 2003, 2010. So they range, from different time periods. So that means that they're really taking their time and conducting research what's happened, throughout the decades. So it's going to be able to give us a different perspective on this particular topic. So to me, I see this as a good thing, as long as they keep using other sources that are a little bit more current. So this is the time where I would go in and I would take a careful look at what they're saying, what they're summarizing, to just get background information. on how they are thinking or what they're thinking. Then they're also dividing up their own literature review, and they're using subheadings. And notice how they're also citing. They're citing all of their sources. They're using APA style. And scroll down again. Then here's another subheading and another subheading here. Now we get into their studies. So this particular published article is mentioning the results of 2 different studies that they conducted. So right here, they talk about the first study that they conducted, the method that they used to conduct their study, who were the participants. This one, it tells you when they did it, elementary schools, the age range, which ones were, females versus males, their ethnicity, all kinds of information about, what population they are studying. Then we're going to scroll down, and they also are telling us what they used as far as the stimulus material, what games they used. Specifically, they use these particular games. So then that does have some limitations, but from there we could make different assertions. And how they conducted the study and what specifically what they did. So this is all great information that we could use to evaluate whether this case study is good or not, what if they had everything that they needed to do, on how they did it. They're very clear about what they did. Then after that, it's their results. Scroll down a little bit. And this is where you would get the evidence, where you can go in and cite or quote. And notice that they're using different parentheses, F, etc., P. So right now, I don't really know what that means. I would need to go down to look at the charts to help me explain or help me understand what it is that I am looking at here. And then you could use some of that information. If you were writing a 10-page paper, then that's the kind of information that you would need to pull from and what you would need to cite. Then after they present their data of their findings, then here they discuss it. This is where they talk about what they think the data means. And that's where you would use your own logic and reasoning to say whether you agree with what they did, or how they found it, or how the information is being interpreted. And then we're going to scroll down, and then I see this study too. And then again, also their methods, their materials, how they measured everything is the same, how they did it. Nice chart, and then here's the different result. So then you could also pull information right from the results. Then as I'm reading this, I notice that there might be other words that I may not understand. So for that, I would have to either look them up in another source, or even the same article might explain to me what they mean, what these different words mean. So things that I could use if I was actually using this for a long-term paper would be, stuff from here, where they're saying what their results are, all of this, that kind of stuff. I could also use information from the general discussion. This is where they talk about both of their particular studies and what they think they mean, and what they did and what they observed. And they're also citing some of their sources. Scrolling down some more. Oh, and then right here they talk about their specific limitations and ideas for future research. You could also take some of this information to cite in your long-term papers. But for this kind of stuff, you don't need it. In my project, it's just for you to know and be aware of it. And that is all information that can help you answer your research question. And you could mention that in your essay, where you can just take maybe one quote or one piece of evidence from this particular article to help you answer that. And I'm going to scroll down the last part. In this particular article is the references. And notice that they're all in alphabetical order and they are following APA style. Different articles might have additional appendices, something else that they're adding to their case studies or their published work, but this particular one doesn't. So just to make you aware of how to look at this information. So now after I've taken my time to explore the contents of this article and to evaluate whether this is something good that will help me, and I've determined that yes, it is going to help me answer my research question whether playing violent video games makes children more aggressive or not. So it just based on what I'm reading here, there's not say 100% proof that this is what happens, but that there is a tendency to do so. So children, based on the findings in this article, children who are already more likely to be aggressive in the first place are going to be a little bit more aggressive after playing video games than others. And that girls are not going to be as aggressive because, according to what they're saying in this article, based on other case studies, girls tend to be less aggressive than boys when they're children, and they tend to use more empathy. So those, of course, could be debatable. Those could be their own research questions in other projects, but this is what I'm going to continue with this for my particular research. So now I am going to go back to my essay. So now I am back in my annotated bibliography file. Okay, so now I am ready to begin my summary. And I could start off with this article discusses findings from two separate case studies in which studies that explore the priming effect of violent video games on children. And that is it. That's the basic summary of what this article is about. That's basically what it does. In different types of annotated bibliography assignments that you might encounter, you may have to write a whole paragraph just summarizing what the article is about. For my class, it's just one sentence will do, just to just what it is. Now I'm going to write an evaluation sentence. And again, in other assignments, if you may need to type up a whole paragraph evaluating your particular source. For my assignment, just 1 or 2 paragraphs will do. So I can start off thinking about the CRAP method to help me come up with my sentence to evaluate it. So I would say this article, I would say, or I could also mention the 2 scholars if I wanted to, but I could just say this article uses based on the finding, uses a Likert scale to measure the effects of video games. Let's see, let me fix Likert, which is basically they use as some sort of survey. A particular survey to address the students games, which is a reliable and respectable method of conducting research with children. The scholars or the doctors or whoever they are, the scholars or the authors. The authors used a wide range of evidence from other respected sources, cited their information respectively, and used fairly current sources. So I'm determining that they use some that are older, some that are current, but they use a variety of sources. So we also have to keep in mind that for some of these types of studies, 5 years might be okay, 7 years might be okay, depending on other sources that I find. I could compare this, the information from this article coincides with findings from other sources in my research. So, or I could say, oh, if it was the opposite, I would say the information, is different from other sources, but it's still valuable because it takes it from this particular perspective, or it does something else. So that's where you would use your own critical thinking to evaluate that. Now, the next section is where I say how this is relevant. So to an extent, I've already addressed some of that here, but then I could say this article supports, well, let's say this is how the findings, let's see, let me put some more thought into that. Okay, so I would say that it provides empirical evidence that answers my research question based on surveys. There is a correlation between violent video games and aggression in children, but it is more pronounced when the child is already, or when the child already has aggressive tendencies. So that here's I'm putting in how it's relevant to my research project. So this may not be a perfect citation, but it doesn't have to be. This is not an English class or a psychology class. So this is just to introduce you to the concept of writing an annotated bibliography and how you go about it. Okay, so then after this, I am ready to press enter. My cursor is again onto my margin, and I am ready to paste my next source. So if I'm ready to add more citations, what I could do is determine, okay, what is my next citation? And this one's, the one that I have here currently begins with a Z. So if my citation, the author needs to be in a different alphabetical order, I could just move this one down and paste my next citation right before it or after it, depending on where it would fall in the alphabetical order. However, let's just say I'm not worried about that right now, and I'm just going to worry about my citations and my sources in the order that I want to at this moment. So I'm ready to paste my next citation. So now I'm just going to paste some random citations. Just a heads up, these next sources are just meant to just show you an example of how to format the paper, not necessarily because these citations are correct as they relate to my project, because they're not. They are in MLA style, but they may not be the most current thing. So this is just an illustration of how you would do the other ones. So here I go. So I have my first source, then I have my next source, and then here's my next source, right? Here's the part of my citation, and then here's my summary. Let's just pretend that it's the way it's supposed to be. And there are all my 5 sources. And notice I can just continue typing, and I don't have to worry about, this because it's already configured. All the margins are the same. Everything is formatted. The only thing that I need to fix is, of course, make sure that they are in alphabetical order. And to do so, there's a simple way of doing this here in Word. I can just highlight all of my citations. Then I'm going to go to the Home tab. And under the paragraph section, A to Z down here, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to leave paragraphs, text, ascending order. Click on OK. And it should alphabetize everything. Sometimes there is an error in it, so you have to just double check to make sure everything is done correctly. But this one, it did it for me. Here's the D, G, L. There's my, everything is now in alphabetical order. So if I did everything the way I was supposed to, this will work flawlessly. The other thing that I recommend everyone to do, doesn't matter what project they're working on, is to always double check their work and edit whatever needs fixing. Use the tools that are available to you. Word, as you're typing things, it'll highlight different things that it doesn't understand. So anything that is not in their internal dictionary. So like these people's names. So for those, you can just ignore those. So let's do spelling check. So I am going to go to the Review tab in Word. Then I'm going to click on the ABC Spelling and Grammar. And it's going to go through in order on the right side what I need to fix. And then on the main side, it'll highlight it so that it'll give me some context as to where it is. If this is correct, because it's somebody's name, I'm just going to ignore. This one is telling me, oh, clarity and etc. So, okay, I'm going to take their suggestion. Then this one, oh, I don't know if that's a real word or not. It's probably coming from the source. I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm just going to ignore all of that. Oh, then here's something else. Oh, it gives me a better suggestion. I'm going to click on OK. And this is coming up again. So maybe it is correct. I don't know. Because this isn't actually a source that I used. So this one I would double check to make sure that this is something that I need to put in there. And that is correct. And if it is correct, then I can just click on ignore all. And it'll ignore the rest of them if it comes up again in my paper. And then again, here's the source that I did find. This is the good source because I know that this is the one that we just did together. So what I'm going to do, that one is correct. So I'm just going to, ignore all of that. Then here goes. And it's giving me a suggestion that maybe this word doesn't need to be there. So I'm just going to go ahead and yes, I'm going to accept their suggestions. And there it goes. So now it's in alphabetical order, and I've done the spelling and grammar check. And, take some time to make sure that, read it aloud to yourself to make sure that it makes sense to you and that it sounds good. Be sure that you use your own way of communicating, and you will do a great job on this. The last part is, of course, saving. When I go to File, Save As, make sure that you put it in a place where you remember and that you give it a name, a meaningful name, and save a copy somewhere else. So in case, you were to lose it, you have it. I recommend that you always back up everything to either Google Drive or OneDrive so that we always have access. And after this, then you're ready to submit it in one of the discussion, the very last discussion assignment. And that is it. So good luck. I'm sure you're going to do great with everything. Just let me know if you have any questions on this. Thank you.